Mob Ties the worst deal I ever signed. I should have just went to Atlantic by myself.
That is Finesse2x, and the deal he is talking about is the one he signed with Mob Ties, JPrinceJr's music label. A contract dispute between the two has since pulled JPrinceJr into the crossfire. And before this story is over, someone's name ends up on the floor, and it may get bloody. The deal. The deal between Finesse2x and Mob Ties Entertainment was supposed to be the move that shifted everything. Mob Ties, the label run by JPrinceJr, son of JPrinceSr, the man who built Rap-A-Lot Records, had the name, the network, and on paper, the structure to music, push an artist with Finesse2x's profile to a different level. Mob Ties itself sits underneath Atlantic Records, meaning the pipeline from an artist signed to Mob Ties to a major label rollout was supposed to be a short one. But that is not what Finesse2x says happened. Not even close.
Mob Ties the worst deal I ever signed. I should have just went to Atlantic by myself.
That line lays out where Finesse2x stands on the agreement in its entirety. In his view, signing with Mob Ties did not open doors, it closed them. And specifically, it closed the door to the very label, Atlantic, that Mob Ties was supposed to give Music Him access to. According to Finesse2x, the issue was never his output. He says he kept working, he kept generating income, he kept moving.
I got gold plaques because I'm having motion. I make 20, 30,000 out the streets every day.
He was not idle. He was not sitting on his hands waiting for the label to make something happen. He was producing independently, music, through street income, through platforms like OnlyFans, through what he calls all off the action. The money was coming in, but the industry infrastructure that a label is supposed to provide, the rooms, the placements, the relationships, that was not showing up.
Why is it motherfuckers that ain't got no hits? Nothing, I ain't accomplished nothing. How in the f is they getting in these rooms? I ain't getting in, cuz.
That is the core of the frustration. Not that he was struggling, but that people with less to show were getting access to the spaces that should have been available to him. And the label, in his view, was the gatekeeper music that was supposed to be opening those doors. And what did the label actually deliver in his account?
The record label ain't gave me nothing. Nadine Robinson Jr. I'm talking about a pecan.
A pecan. That is the unit of measurement Finesse2x assigns to Mob Ties' contribution to his career. The resentment had clearly been building before any of this went public. Finesse2x had, by his own account, raised the issues internally. He had tried to communicate with JPrinceJr directly. None of it produced results. The contract remained in place. The label remained inactive. And Finesse2x remained locked in a deal he describes as the worst of his life. The deal is the foundation of everything that follows in this story. The money music disputes, the public callouts, the confrontations with JPrinceSr, all of it traces back to a contract that Finesse2 Music Time says was the worst decision of his professional career. And the way this story unfolds next, starting with money, reveals just how music deep that frustration goes. The money. When a business relationship collapses, money is almost always at the center of it. In the case of Finesse2x and JPrinceJr, the financial dimension of their falling out is one of the most layered and most revealing parts of the entire dispute. Finesse2x has not tried to hide the fact that he has lost money. He addresses it head-on and without apology.
Didn't I tell y'all I millions of dollars off? I told y'all I millions of dollars.
No attempt to walk that back, but immediately after, he draws a distinction that is critical to understanding his entire argument. The money is not what he is dwelling on.
I'm past it. I used to be fucked up about it. I'm past that part. I ain't worried about being fucked up about the money no more.
Past it. That is how he frames his relationship with the loss. Not defeated by it, not obsessed with it. Past it. And then, in the very next breath, he lands that reframes the entire money conversation.
I can go get a lot of more money. And I can go get it a whole lot faster if you let me out this contract.
That is where the money and the contract become the same conversation. He is not asking for the lost money back. He is not looking for a payout. He is saying that the obstacle between him and the next chapter of his career is the contract itself. And if that contract were removed, he believes he could rebuild faster than anyone expects. But there is a specific financial dispute at the beating heart of this beef. One that involves a private jet, jewelry, and a music video. It is the detail that more than any other seems to have lodged itself deepest in Finesse2x's chest. The private jet and the jewelry have been referenced publicly by those in JPrinceJr's corner as evidence of the label's investment in Finesse2x. A symbol of what Mob Ties put into the artist. A reason he should feel supported, taken care of, and perhaps a little more grateful for the deal he signed. Finesse2x dismantles that narrative in one line.
I paid for a jet ride and jewelry for a video that got him rich.
According to Finesse2x, the jet and the jewelry were not gifts. They were not label investments. They were charges, costs billed back to him against his own earnings that he did not know about until the paperwork arrived. He describes the moment of discovering this with a clarity that makes the feeling of betrayal difficult to miss.
I paid for that. See, I ain't know that I was paying for all that. I paid for it. I ain't know that at first, though. I ain't know that until I got the paperwork.
He thought it was love. He thought it was the label showing out for their artist. The kind of treatment that signals you are valued, that the team is behind you. Then the paperwork came, and the jet and the jewelry, presented as evidence of the label's generosity, turned out to be line items charged to Finesse2x's own account. And the video all of this was used for, he says that video made money, not for him, for the label.
Whole time this was for a video that they made money off.
So in Finesse2x's accounting, he paid for the jet ride. He paid for the jewelry. The video that those things were used to create generated revenue, and the people who reaped the financial reward were not him. That version of events, being billed for what felt like support while others collected on the output, feeds directly into the broader portrait he is painting of the deal. It was not just that the label was inactive on his behalf. It is that, in his telling, the structure of the deal was designed to extract from him while appearing to invest in him. And on top of all of that, he was still in the studio, still recording, still delivering product.
I'm going to the studio and making good music. Records with Glorilla, records with this person, records with... The label won't even fucking do what they supposed to do.
Records with Glorilla, who at the time was one of the most commercially explosive female rappers in the country. He was generating the kind of collaborations that should have been easy wins for any label to activate, and still nothing moved.
I can't be the quarterback and the wide receiver. You want me to throw the ball and catch the motherfucker? I'm going to the studio and making good music.
He is asking to be allowed to do one job, just one, make the music. But instead, he says, he was left to throw the ball and then sprint downfield and catch it himself, with no support, no infrastructure, and no sign that the label was going to show up. All of this, the chargebacks, the inactivity, the imprisonment of the contract, set the stage for the moment when JPrinceJr went public with a post that Finesse2x felt was aimed directly at him. A post about mirrors and victims. And that post is what pulled this war fully out into the open. The clapback. The post that detonated the public phase of this dispute came from JPrinceJr, Music, and it did not name Finesse2x. It did not have to. According to Finesse2x, JPrinceJr dropped a comment in the section of a page called Academics that reacted to something Finesse2x, Music, had said. The comment, as Finesse2x quoted it, went after a very specific type music of person, a man who lost a fortune and refused to take responsibility for it.
There ain't no victim bigger on the earth than a man who blew $1 million and is having trouble getting it back.
That was the first line, and then Music, Prince Jr.
It's harder to look in the mirror than it is to point a finger.
2 sentences. Music. One about a man who lost $1 million and blamed the world for it. One about accountability. The subtext was as transparent as glass. Finesse2x, who had been publicly talking about losing money and pointing to the label's failures, was being told, without his name in the post, to look inward. Finesse2x's response came in waves, and the first wave was disarmingly honest. He did not deny the losses. He did not dispute the bad decisions. He owned all of it, but he refused to own only that.
So yes, I have been disloyal. Yes, I have run off. Yes, I have made the wrong decision.
That is the kind of admission that most people would never make in public, especially in the middle of a dispute. And the reason Finesse2x makes it so freely music is because it is not the end of his argument. It is the setup for it. Because the moment JPrinceJr added the line about looking in the mirror instead of pointing fingers, Finesse2x drew a very sharp line. His counterargument was not about whether he had made mistakes. Music. It was about whether JPrinceJr had the standing to deliver that lesson.
Difference between me and you is, I was forced. You was in the streets by choice. I was in the streets by force.
That distinction, music, chosen streets versus forced streets, is the axis around which everything else in Finesse2x's argument rotates. He is not attacking JPrinceJr's character in the abstract. He is attacking JPrinceJr's authority to speak to someone whose circumstances were fundamentally different from his own.
You are blessed in abundance. You are a privileged person, a privileged child.
This is Finesse2x not just defending himself. He is going on offense. He takes JPrinceJr's post, which was designed to frame Finesse2x as a man who refuses accountability, and he dismantles music, the frame entirely. The argument becomes, when you are born into a name, into resources, into a music legacy handed down from one of the most powerful figures in the rap game, your lecture on mirrors and fingers does not carry music, the same weight as it would from someone who had nothing. And then Finesse2x pivots back to the structural argument, the one about who was supposed to do what.
Because where I come from, they don't teach you the things that privileged families teach you.
His job was to make music. The label's job was to move it. And when the music did not break through, when the collaboration's music did not translate to placements, and the records did not reach the audiences they should have, the blame in JPrinceJr's music framing landed on Finesse2x. What Finesse2x fires back is one of the most pointed lines in the entire dispute.
I'm not the CEO. I'm not signed with Atlantic. Mob Ties is. I'm just a rapper. It's y'all job to push the pen and the pad across the table and get the job done.
It's not my fault that they really don't like you. That line suggests that the failure to activate the Atlantic pipeline may not have been a question of resources or timing or strategy, but of relationships, and specifically, of JPrinceJr's relationships. Finesse2x is saying, without saying it directly, that Mob Tie's inability to move the needle on his records may have had something to do with how the label is perceived by the people at Atlantic whose support would have been required to make it work. It is a devastating piece of the argument, and it sets up the most confrontational chapter in this entire story. The moment when Finesse2x stopped addressing the situation and started addressing the people in it.
So now I'm a victim of circumstance.
By the time Finesse2x recorded what became the most watched and most talked about clip in this entire dispute, the conversation had moved far beyond the language of business. It had become something raw, something more volatile, music, and something that brought one of the most respected names in hip-hop history directly into the crossfire. JPrinceJr had entered the conversation. The elder music Prince, the architect of Rap-A-Lot Records, a figure whose name carries enormous weight in Houston, in hip-hop, and in the streets, had come to his son's defense. And Finesse2x, rather than pulling back in the presence of that name, did the opposite.
Yeah, see, I know that about the real street niggas. The real stand-up, the men. Not all of those slow talking.
He was addressing JPrinceJr directly.
With a bald spot, with a montage hat, trying to be your daddy. He the gangster. He the one laid this down.
The dismissive tone, music, the description of JPrinceJr's appearance, the mocking of the legend, was crafted to provoke. Music, Finesse2x was not sidestepping the Prince name. He walked straight at it.
We don't believe you. You nobody.
You nobody, directed at JPrinceJr. In any context, that is a bold statement. In the culture these men operate in, where names carry the weight of history, where respect is currency, and where publicly dismissing a figure of JPrinceJr's stature has consequences that go well beyond social media. Those two words represent one of the highest possible escalations. But what followed in that same clip is equally important, because after going directly at JPrinceJr, Finesse2x pivoted, and the pivot revealed what he was actually after.
And I know that's your pops and he gonna defend you and not respect the game. But you know he got a sucker for a son.
He acknowledges that a father defending his son is understandable. He even says he respects that. And then he uses that acknowledgement as a knife. A father defending his son is one thing, but what does it say about the son when the son cannot handle his own business? When the son needs his father to step in. He got a sucker for a son, is the answer Finesse2x provides. And then, the challenge, music, the part of this clip that generated most discussion, the most analysis, and the most questions about what exactly Finesse2x was putting out into the world.
You don't do no real nigga like that. Call me. Why you can't talk to me?
Read those back-to-back on the surface, and Finesse2x has framed it this way. It is an invitation to resolve the dispute face-to-face. He wants to sit down, he wants to end it. He says so plainly, he is not asking for war, he is asking for dialogue. But the context in which this invitation is being issued tells a different story, or at least a more complicated one. He has just called JPrinceJr a nobody. He has just called JPrinceJr a sucker. He is issuing a challenge to meet up in the same breath as the kind of language that, in street culture, carries implications that extend far beyond a conference table conversation. In the culture and the context that both of these men operate within, a challenge to meet up, issued after that level of public disrespect toward a figure like JPrinceJr, is not simply a request for a business sit-down. Both men know that. The audience watching knows that. And Finesse2x, who has spent his entire life navigating exactly this kind of coded language, knows it better than anyone. That is where the title of this story lives. Not in any documented, explicit threat, but in the convergence of the language, the culture, and the stakes. The dismissal of a legend, the public calling out of his son, and the open invitation to meet up that carries the freight of everything that came before it. And then he closes the clip with a line that removes any remaining ambiguity about where his emotions are sitting. Cue to the end. Not, let's figure this out. Not, I'm open to resolution. Cue to the end. That is a statement of finality, of fury, of someone who has reached the outer edge of whatever patience he had left. And yet, music. And this is the tension that runs through the entirety of Finesse2x's public communications on this. He has consistently positioned himself, music, as the one who wants the conflict to end. He has asked, repeatedly, for JPrinceJr to call him, to meet him, to sit down and find a resolution. He says he is not asking for remorse. I ain't ask for support.
Get to the end.
What he is asking for is a music single thing, one outcome, let me out of the contract. Everything else, the call-outs, music, the dismissals, the language about what happens at the end, is what accumulates when that one question keeps going unanswered. The verdict. So, what actually happened here? Did Finesse2x put a hit on JPrinceJr? The answer depends entirely on how you are reading the word. If you take hit in its most literal sense, a coordinated, deliberate act of physical violence, there is nothing in the public record of this dispute that supports that conclusion. What the clips and the transcript show is a deeply frustrated artist locked inside a contract he despises, using the sharpest and most aggressive language available to him to publicly pressure and shame the man who controls his career. That is not nothing. In the world that both Finesse2x and JPrinceJr move through, music, the streets of Houston, the corridors of the rap industry, the intersection of those two worlds, public disrespect is not just noise, it is action. Calling JPrinceJr nobody, declaring JPrinceJr a sucker for a son, issuing an open challenge to meet up in the wake of that language, these are not idle words in this context. They carry weight, they carry risk, and everyone involved understands exactly what that weight means. But here is what Finesse2x keeps returning to across every clip, every rant, every public call-out. Not retaliation, not revenge, not escalation for its own sake.
I can go get a lot of more money. And I can go get it a whole lot faster if you let me out this contract.
That is the ask. Let me out. Free me from the deal. Everything else in this story, the jet story, the chargeback story, the music, you nobody moment, the __ to the end, is the sound that surrounds a single unresolved business request. Stripped down to its structure, Finesse2x's argument is a business argument. He signed a deal. Music. The deal did not perform the way he was led to believe it would. He continued to produce music and income on his own. The label did not fulfill what he understood to be its obligations, and now the contract keeps him from moving forward freely. Music. While the people holding that contract respond to his frustration by posting about mirrors and accountability rather than releasing him. Whether that argument holds in a legal or contractual sense, whether mob ties actually failed to meet their obligations, or whether Finesse2x's frustration is partly a product of his own choices cannot be determined from Instagram posts and rants. That is a question for attorneys and formal proceedings if this ever reaches that point. But what the public record does reveal is this. Finesse2x feels genuinely wronged. He believes the deal was misrepresented to him. He believes the costs of the music jet and the jewelry were hidden from him until the paperwork arrived. He believes the label had the infrastructure to move his career forward and chose not to use it. And he believes that when he raised these grievances internally, music, he was met not with resolution, but with a public post painting him as the problem. JPrinceJr's position, at least as reflected in the post Finesse2x quoted, is that Finesse2x music needs to own his failures. That a man who loses $1 million and blames the people around him is engaged in a pattern that only ends with self-accountability. That is a coherent position, and it is probably not entirely wrong. But Finesse2x's music counter, that JPrinceJr is a man who inherited access, who chose the streets rather than being swallowed by them, and who therefore lacks the standing to lecture someone who never had those choices, is also coherent and it is not easily dismissed. Both things can occupy the same space. Finesse2x may have made costly decisions, and the label may also have failed to deliver what it was supposed to deliver. What is not in dispute is that the situation is unresolved. Finesse2x is still under contract. Music, JPrinceJr has not publicly agreed to release him. The language being exchanged publicly has only intensified, and the shadow of J. Music Prince Sr.'s name, called nobody by a man who clearly knows the weight of that word, still hangs over all of it. The title of this story, Finesse2x puts a hit on JPrinceJr over their contract, captures the spirit and the energy of what Finesse2x put into music, those clips. It is loud. It is aggressive. It is a public act of war, whatever form that war ultimately takes. Whether it is a hit in the street sense of the word is a question that only the people closest to the situation can truly answer, and they are not talking about it in terms that make that answer easy to pin down. What is clear is that Finesse2x has drawn a line. He has music, dismissed the Prince family name in public. He has called the contract the worst mistake of his career. He has said plainly everything he apparently could not get JPrinceJr to hear behind closed doors. Whether JPrinceJr responds, and how, is the next chapter. And given everything that has already been said, it will be hard to ignore. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.